Yo, what is going on, guys? Welcome back. This is going to be your War Games guide. If you are a beginner player or returning player and just haven't played this game mode in a long time, we are going to tell you everything you need to know to be successful in this game mode. We're going to go over deck. We're going to go over the game itself, the strategy behind it. I'm going to give you all my tips and tricks and everything that I know in order for you to get through War Games as fast as possible, because it's certainly a pretty easy event. Also, if you're interested, we will be streaming this event when it does go live tomorrow. So be sure that you either stick around on YouTube or go in the description, find the Twitch channel and go watch over there. One thing I do want to say though, before we get started, this is just my strategy. There are multiple different strategies that do work in this game mode. And if you do have one that does work, then by all means, stick with it. This is not the only strat that actually works in this game mode. This is just what I use, and it works really, really, really well for me. And it has for quite a long time. So it's the one I'm sticking with, and it's the one that I'm telling you about. So let's first jump over to the deck and take a look at it. In the deck editor, the purple 16 is going to be where you're going to find the War Games deck. Of course, they have male and female, and this strat works for either male or female. As you see, we sandbag to the absolute maximum when it comes to this particular event. We have 4 ups, we have 4 downs, we have 4 lefts, and we have 4 rights. If you do see this video in the future, after the next season has passed, this is the bottom tier of the current season that we're in, and that is what I'll use in the next season. It's not going to be WrestleMania, but this particular season, that is what the bottom tier is. Now, if you don't have the very bottom tier with 100 matches done on all your cards, I'd actually probably recommend just using myth cards. They are very easy to get, and as long as you have 4 ups, 4 downs, 4 lefts, 4 rights, it's going to work out perfect for you. But more importantly, I think the support cards do matter much more when it comes to this particular strategy. You're going to have 1 manager, you're going to have 2 action supports. As far as your manager goes, you're going to obviously want the best manager you can get in 2 stats. So whatever your best 2 stat manager is, and your action supports are going to be 2 complementary to your manager. In this particular case, in my case anyway, I have a Paul Heyman, which is power, toughness for our manager. We want 2 complementary action supports, so both of those are going to be speed and charisma. So let's say you have a toughness speed as your manager. You're going to want a power charisma action support. If you have a power speed manager, then you're going to want toughness charisma action supports. So you're going to want to balance out your deck by your manager and complementary action supports. I also want to mention that when setting up your deck, if you don't have a very good manager or complementary action supports, you might need to put in your best cards and only sandbag 2 of them with WrestleManias. You do want this kind of balanced though. So let's say you have a really, really, really high, like you were playing Street Fighter, you have the Akuma or something for some reason, and the rest of your cards are just not that good. You're going to want to take out really, really strong cards and balance it with more of a lower tiered card. That way you can have at least really good cards and then sandbag just a little bit. That way your manager and your action supports don't play such a crucial role. But now let's look at the actual event itself. You're gonna have 5 cards to get through. Now, no matter what tier you are, even if you're not high enough tier in order to get the event card, you're still gonna have 5 cards to get through. And the very first card isn't gonna require very many points. 420 for the very first card. The very last card, the 5th card, it's going to require the most points, 7,200 points. So quite a difference, and it is quite a bit more. I mean, the last card is almost more than all the rest of them combined, but this event is still not hard. But going into the event, assuming that you're using the deck that I'm using, this is going to be tip number 1. When you look at your opponent, your challenger, you see Shorty right here. Well, Shorty has about 27,000 wins. You want to avoid these opponents completely. So any opponent that has even 5,000 wins or 10,000 wins, up to however many, 100,000 wins, you're going to want to avoid these opponents. And in order to do that, all you have to do is just back out of the game and then go back into the game. And once you go back in, you're going to get a different opponent, and you're going to keep doing that until you get an opponent that has very, very, very few games played. Now, the reason for finding an opponent like that is because those opponents have the worst support cards. Miss Elizabeth, +3 to power, +3 to speed. That is obviously one of the worst support cards you can get, and compared to Jerry the King Lawler, which has +224 and 224 charisma. Our support card is obviously much better. And when you talk about cards and using cards that are only in the 30s for total stats, that extra 224 certainly goes a long way. If you play those opponents that have a really high number of games played, they're going to have good support cards, which means they're going to actually have a deck more comparable to yours, and it's going to make your experience a little bit more difficult. But now let's talk about the gameplay itself. You're going to have 3 rings. And as far as these 3 rings go, you're going to want to control them every single one of the 3 rounds. Since you want to control all 3 rings, you're going to want to put 1 card in each of the rings. Now, it's not always going to be like this at the very start, because sometimes they do play 3 cards in one single ring, which kind of makes it a little bit challenging, and sometimes makes it where you have to make the decision, well, can you actually beat it with the cards you have and a support card? But typically, a lot of times they don't. They're either going to play 1, 2, maybe 3 the first round, and then the other remaining rounds, sometimes they play 0 cards in a round, which certainly makes it easy. They do play their cards first. So if you look up here at the top, you can see that there are no red squares. The red squares means that that's where they played a card. And they're going to play them in the very beginning of the match. It's no longer the case where they play the cards after the timer runs out, which made it kind of pretty well at the very end of the timer. They play it before. So we know they're not going to play any cards in ring 1. So our 1 card is going to win that ring. They played 2 cards in ring 2, so that's the only ring we really have to worry about. And then they played they played 0 cards in ring 3, so we know we're going to win that ring. And so because they played 2 cards in ring 2, we're also going to play 2 cards in ring 2. And in this particular case, you kind of have a choice. That's why we want complementary action support cards. You see, our manager boosted up our toughness, boosted up our charisma, but that still means that our power and speed is really low. So that's why we have action support cards to complement the manager. That way we can cover those really low stats. Super moves is also a fantastic option when it comes to when you gain your super move, so you don't have to use your support card. If I have my super move, I use it round 1 every single time. One thing to note though with super move is it doesn't affect any card that you're not playing against an opponent. So in ring 1, we didn't play an opponent, so super move did nothing. Super move is going to double these stats though because we're playing an opponent. Action support cards work exactly the same way. If you do not play an opponent, your action support actually does nothing. Now for the round 2, you see that they didn't play any cards on round 1 or in ring 1 again. They played 2 more cards on ring 2, and then they played 0 cards in ring 3. We have 4 cards to choose from. You're always going to want to play all 4 cards every single time, even though that they don't. You don't get extra points for more cards in a ring. You only get points for defeating an opponent. You get points for taking the ring, and then you get points for holding the ring. So that's why you're always going to want to be in control of it. So we have a bunch of extra cards right there. You know, we could use a support card right there, which is what, you know, I was showing them. This video is from, like I said, the last War Games, since War Games isn't live yet. But that's why it's all like older. Either way, you put the support card on one of it, it's not going to work. The support card only works on cards that you actually play an opponent. So put in all 4 cards, even if there's no opponents on that ring. Play support cards on places where your opponent has cards played, or just, you know, save it if you think that you can win. You get points, like I said, for defeating your opponent. You get points for holding the ring. You get points for taking the ring, not how many cards you have in the ring. And then the very last round, well, the computer didn't even bother placing any cards in there. And like I said, this happens quite often. There's sometimes where they don't place any cards. Sometimes they don't place a card in round 1, round 2, round 3. Sometimes they place all 4 cards every single round, which makes it a little bit more difficult, obviously, you know, rather than obviously not playing any cards. But you get 20 points for winning the thing, and the maximum number of points you can get is 84 total. So that's always going to be the goal, trying to get to 84. And it's really going to depend on how many cards they play. If they play the maximum number of cards, then you can get up to 84, or is it 83? It's either 83 or 84. I can't actually remember, but that is the maximum you're going to be able to get. So now let's take a look at another match and go through it again. The reason why you're going to want 4 up, 4 down, 4 left, 4 right, because each ring is going to have an arrow associated with it. This one is up arrow is going to get plus 10. There's also going to be minus stats. And so if there are minus stats, you don't want to put that arrow in. And so being that every single ring, it's going to be completely random, you're going to want to have a wide range of arrows. Another thing to also note is that they don't match your deck exactly. They're going to have a few cards that are probably going to be over 100 stats, up to 200, possibly 300 stats. It's not going to be many, but that is where your support cards are really going to come through. And so sometimes when you're playing it with this stat or with this strat, you're going to see that they're going to have opponents. You're going to face opponents that are, you know, in your range, 30 to 40 stats. But then there's going to be one random 200 stat guy. See right there, we're doing speed. We need an action support. Since each speed is only about 35, 36, we're going to want to have that action support to cover that extra speed and give that speed that extra boost. Because even with 330 plus stats, in this particular case, it was 182. So we added the support card and we're well over what their card is. They did a reversal. That happens a lot when you use this deck. So you're going to want to cover all bases when it comes to stats to try to be able to give your team or squad or whatever the best chance to win every single time. So once you go through the first round, once you go through the second round, in this third round, they played on ring number 1. We already used the support card on ring 1. So Drew McIntyre has 300, 250, 300, 300. And so he's covered. He's pretty much covering the entire ring for everybody else. So we know we're going to win. Typically, since you have 2 action supports with your manager support, those action supports are going to be played in different rings every single time. So whatever cards are being played, you're going to want to play an action support to balance out whatever stats you don't have really high of. So after it's all said and done, in this particular case, you know, we got 80 more points, which again is pretty decent considering the max is 83, 84, somewhere around there. So that is the basic idea on how to play the event. Let's talk about the doublers and boosts and whether or not it's worth it for you to use that. The double points, the point doublers ×2. I always use my credits. This is what I save my free-to-play credits for, is for point doublers, and War Games is no different. I certainly think it's worth it. If you can get above 80 points every single match, You double that 160, you're flying through war games very, very easy. There are 2 boosts that you can get. One with like a handshake kind of. It's a blue one down here at the bottom left. That gives you an extra card to play. So your first round, if you have 4 cards and let's say they used all 4 of their cards and it's going to make it really difficult for you to control all 3 arenas, you might want to use that and give yourself an extra card and then use 5 cards the first round instead of 4. But it doesn't happen very often, at least for me. I don't use boosts very often. I don't spend credits on boosts very often. Sometimes you do need them. The one on the right is a fist, and that knocks out your opponent's card instantly. And so let's say that you're in round 2, because you can only use that boost in round 2 or round 3. But let's say in round 2, the computer played a juiced 300 plus stat card. And that does sometimes happen. That does. And if you don't have support cards high enough in order to defeat it, it can obviously cause problems and you can't win that ring at all and get any points for it. So that's where that fist comes in. You just take the fist and put it on that one single card, and when the round starts, it instantly knocks it out completely. And the computer doesn't even know that you knocked it out. So they might not even play any other cards in that ring. They could possibly do, but the card will tell you, or the card will just instantly knock out the opponent, so you don't have to worry about those juice cards. But like I said, we will be streaming when this event goes live tomorrow, and as of right now, I still don't know who the event card is, so it'll be interesting to see who that is. And this strategy can be used for future events, for future seasons, until they change at least the way that War Games works. But at least as of right now, how War Games functions, this method for me works absolutely beautifully. I fly through War Games and it's very, very, not very stressful. Some say that it's boring, which it certainly can be for sure, but it is certainly very easy. But either way, those are my tips, my tricks, my strategy, my deck setup, basically everything that you need to know in order to be successful. And if you want to come and check out the stream, then be sure you're subscribing to the YouTube, turn on those notifications, be sure you're following Twitch and turn on those notifications as well, because we'll be streaming on both platforms when the event goes live. But either way, hopefully everybody is doing good and ready for the event, and hopefully it's a good event card. I'm sure by the time the video comes out, we'll know who it is, but at least as of right now, me making it, I don't. But I'll see y'all next time, guys. Hopefully this helped you. Hit the thumbs up if it did. Peace out.